On this day in 1945, Celtic manager Jimmy McStay was dismissed by the board. Jimmy McStay, like his great-nephew Paul, was an outstanding player in a mostly unsuccessful period for Celtic. He signed for the club as a player in 1922, with Celtic having just won the league championship by a single point on the last day of the season, and joined his older brother Willie in the team. Unfortunately, the rest of the 1920s and most of the 1930s would be a period of domination for Rangers, and it must be said, Celtic showed a lack of ambition and possibly even a lack of will to challenge them seriously in that period. One possible explanation is that over the previous, hugely successful period from the turn of the century, Celtic had always relied on a small core group of players who were retained year on year. It had served them well, but now Rangers were operating with much larger pools of players, and Celtic seemed unwilling to adopt this approach. After initially struggling to settle as a left half, the making of McStay was the decision to try him out at centre half in 1924. He proved to be solid and dependable in that position, and in 1925-26 the league was won for the first time in 4 seasons. It proved to be a fleeting success, with only Motherwell preventing Rangers from equalling Celtic's 6-in-a-row league record in 1931-32, the only time anyone other than Celtic or Rangers won the league between the 2 world wars. By then, Jimmy McStay had succeeded brother Willie as captain in 1929 and would continue playing until 1934, when he was released at the end of the season at the age of 39. Playing alongside such luminaries as Patsy Gallagher, Jimmy McGrory, John Thompson, Chick Geetins and Johnny Crumb, over the course of his 12 years as a Celtic player, he won the league only once, but the Scottish Cup was won 5 times in 1923, 1925, 1927, 1931 and 1933. It was Jimmy McStay's great misfortune to succeed the autocratic Willie Maley as manager in June 1940. With official competition suspended for the duration of the war, the board had finally ousted Maley and were determined never again to allow an employee the power he had wielded for so long. Jimmy McStay would never be allowed the control over team affairs monopolised for so long by Maley. He had had one very successful season in management with Alloa Athletic, and their vice-chairman Willie Stanton was quoted as saying, "He is a man in 1,000. At Alloa, he has had our complete confidence right from the beginning. He picked the team himself and was never subjected to any interference in his work from the board." It was to be the complete opposite for him at Celtic. The board had decided to virtually mothball the club for the duration of the war, and it was to McStay's great frustration that all his efforts to build a team were thwarted by them. One of his most disheartening moments was their decision to reject the services of Matt Busby, who was desperate to play for the club and hoped at the end of the war that he might be given the chance to manage Celtic himself. By 1942, McStay was reduced to fielding makeshift sides made up of players from junior clubs and youngsters picked up from Boys Guild football. Even offers from former players from the 30s like Frank and Hugh O'Donnell and Willie Buchan were turned down by the board. McStay did bring in promising youngsters like goalkeeper Willie Miller, Bobby Evans and John McPhail by 1944, but for the most part, the wartime Celtic sides lacked quality, fitness and determination, and this came right from the top, at board level. As the war came to an end in Europe and dragged on in the Pacific in the summer of 1945, rumours grew that Jimmy McStay was to be sacked, with newspapers openly speculating on his successor by mid-July. Willie Allison wrote in the Sunday Mail of the 15th of July 1945 that Jimmy McGrory was "as good as at Parkhead, as far as my information is concerned." McStay had been on holiday for a few weeks when he returned to work on the 23rd of July. As he stepped off his tramcar at Parkhead Cross, he was greeted by a newspaper billboard proclaiming that Jimmy McGrory was set to be named Celtic's new manager. At a short meeting with Chairman Tom White that morning, he was asked to hand in his resignation and McGrory was appointed the following day. Nothing really was to change. McGrory was given no more control than McStay had been, and it would be 20 long years before the board finally and reluctantly relinquished control to Jock Stein in 1965. J-Mac of the Evening Times wrote a few days after McStay's dismissal, "No one of common sense is going to be so foolish as to believe that Jimmy McStay was to blame for the way that Celtic had fallen from a time-honoured pinnacle of football's skill and renown. In all ways, he was well equipped to turn his attention to the job of guiding the team to success from the managerial desk. What he did at Alloa in this respect is sufficient proof." Jimmy McStay carried the can for the board's failings, and after all he did for Celtic, he deserved far better than that.